It's a pleasure today to have here in the IOF David Fink from UMBC. Welcome, David. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you here. I think we've known each other quite a while.
Quite a while.
Quite a while, and over many companies as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't go into that.
Which maybe we shouldn't go into that, but over several companies we've known each other. And so why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are, what you do, etc.
Right. So I'm David Fink. I have two hats at UMBC. One is entrepreneur in residence at BW Tech, Research and Technology Park. In that role, I'm an advisor to early stage companies. We have about 130 companies altogether at BW Tech, and about 20 of those are early stage. I work with mostly the life sciences companies. And that's about half the time I spend. The rest is as a site miner for the Maryland Innovation Initiative at UMBC, and in that role I work with faculty, entrepreneurs who want to raise money for projects, commercialization projects. So I know that I've been doing that for about 10, 12 years, and entrepreneur residence for maybe 18 or 19. So that's how far back we go.
So far back we go. You've been doing it a while. You've been doing it a while.
Yeah.
So, an entrepreneur in residence, that sounds like a very fancy title. Do a lot of universities have that? Is that, or are we?
Yes. The universities that are doing commercialization or trying to start companies, also in the startup industry in general, incubators and also a lot of VCs will have entrepreneurs in residence as well.
What kind of services do you provide as the entrepreneur in residence? What are those services that you help faculty with?
Yes. In the for early stage companies, it's mostly an introduction to the ecosystem, the support ecosystem in Maryland. We've been doing it for a long time. We know most of the people in the industry. We give advice on how to start their business, how to find the right advisors. We help with proposals and patent, any kind of activity. And generally, we also are just a mentor for the early stage CEOs. A lot of times you have to do kind of moral support in order to keep them going and keep them on track.
So, as the site miner and as the entrepreneur on campus, you've obviously met a lot of faculty that have never been involved in any form of commercialization. And faculty, by their very nature, are entrepreneurial. For example, my lab has millions of dollars in equipment that has all been financed, gifted, grants to be able to put it together. So by our very nature, we're entrepreneurial. But I know how you will go down, how you think about this, because we spoke earlier, is that you think it's the wrong type of entrepreneurialism for business, that faculty...
Yes, faculty, especially research faculty, are entrepreneurs. In fact, UMBC has a program for early and junior faculty to give them some more background on how to run their own little lab as a business. But it doesn't help them when they have to sell something. And that's the problem that most of the faculty do. They don't understand their market, they don't understand their customers, they don't understand that they're trying to solve a problem and that they're providing a solution to that problem. And so most of the early planning that they do should not be technical. It should be what's happening in the marketplace that they're trying to go into.
I think most faculty that start companies see a business from a research technology perspective, and they don't see it from outside looking in from the business perspective. And I think marketing, selling things, packaging...
But in most businesses, the technology is given. There's a product or a service, and it's all about the customer and the customer's problem and how you reach the customer. It's a completely different problem that most academic researchers are not able to handle.
So do you think faculty shouldn't be forming companies?
No, I think they should. There's always a technical or technology component to the business, and the business evolves, that technology evolves as well. But the real issue is how do you, first of all, raise money for your enterprise? And secondly, how do you manufacture and reach the customer with that? How do you market it? Most academic researchers are not in a position to do that.
So would you say that faculty that have launched companies, that being the CEO of the company, is perhaps the wrong way to go for faculty starting companies? And perhaps be chief scientist. Perhaps be chief.
As we talked earlier, I feel very strongly about that. The faculty members should position themselves as the chief technical or science officer, not as the CEO of the company. At BW Tech, we look for people who can work along with the startups as a business person. I think it's really critical for the success of the company.
I think it's very difficult for faculty to find a CEO in the early days, both financially as well as having access to that pool of people.
Correct.
That's not easy at all. So how does, if a faculty is starting something, how do they go about finding a CEO?
Well, it's a problem, and it's mostly about connections. We look for people who have other jobs, or they're independently wealthy enough to be able to work part-time at no cost or for equity, or for if they can raise money, fine, they can get paid out of that. But no money until you raise money.
No money until you raise money. Do you have a pool of CEOs, a black book of CEOs that are at any time looking for positions, opportunities, gigs?
We have a lot of connections. I wouldn't say it's a black book. TEDCO does have a black book of people that are potential business advisors or CEOs, and I think that's a place to start as well.
So I'm a new faculty member. I've got this fantastic idea. I've reduced it to practice in my lab or close to. What's the first thing I do? What do I need to do?
The first thing you need to do is find out if there's a problem that your technology solves. And if there's a problem, who's the customer for that problem? Because when the business starts, the technology component gradually becomes less and less important, and it's more how you reach the customer, what their problems are. And so my advice is go talk to customers first before you modify begin to develop your technology. We had one company that started an I-Core program down at College Park. They went in with one idea, and 3 weeks later they came out with a completely different approach for what their technology would do. It's not unusual because the business perspective is one that they really don't have.
So I've got an idea. I've reduced it to practice. I come and knock on your door to talk to you. What are you going to ask me? What are the set of questions you're going to ask me? That's if you even open the door to me.
I have 4 questions. Right?
4 questions.
What problem are you solving? If there's no problem, then there's no need for a solution. What's your technology solution? That's usually the easy part because they have a mind for that. Who's the customer that needs that solution? The customer is not P&G. A customer is a person in that company that needs the solution. And finally, how do you quantify what the value of your solution is to that particular customer? That's the hard part. That's why you have to actually go out and talk to people in the industry and find out how they quantify their project. Without those kinds of answers, you're really not in a position to start aggressively start.
I think in my opinion, your 4 questions are based at really market assessment and even potentially market strategy. So how does a professor, say a professor of chemistry like me, suddenly jump into a market strategy? I've now gone black to white in terms of what my core competency is. So how do we do that as faculty? How can we help faculty think about market assessment?
If you were starting with the Maryland Innovation Initiative, there is a component there where we hire vendors, experts, can help you develop the strategic plan, the go-to-market strategy. And I think that's the best way to do it. You get outside advice, and that person might also become involved in the company eventually as well. We have for students, we have a program called the Idea Lab, where if you have a company, they can come and use the facilities and the advice from BW Tech. And that's another way that's a very early way to get some advice. But mostly it's understanding what the marketplace is about. And if you don't understand that, you're not ready.
Do you think most faculty have even thought about that when they bang on your door?
May have thought about it, but didn't think about it seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously enough, let's say.
Okay. Well, it's great to hear that you're thinking that way. You're looking at it from the business perspective, whereas the faculty that are launching companies, thinking about companies, I guarantee they're not thinking about market strategy and go-to-market strategy, market assessment. They're thinking about their great technology.
I've talked to over 100 faculty at UMBC, and I can guarantee you that's the case.
There you go.
Maybe 5 of them have thought about that.
That's awesome. So you mentioned you spoke to 100 faculty. Of the faculty, how many companies have we launched? What's the history of the commercialization of UMBC?
So prior to the start of the Maryland Innovation Initiative in 2012, UMBC created about 1 company every 2 years. And now it's 2 to 3, sometimes we have 4 companies started in a year, which is like a step change in the whole business. And there have been 26 companies started through the MII project in the last 10 years.
That's impressive. That's actually a lot.
It's a big change. It's not MIT, it's not Hopkins, but it's for a university the size of UMBC, it's actually a substantial number.
That's great. That's great to hear that. I know. What are these companies? Are these companies in kind of the STEM, the science area, or are they elsewhere?
So the MII only supports technology-based companies. So they're all technology companies. They're divided between engineering, some IT, cyber kind of companies, and also life sciences. Johns Hopkins gets half the money from the program, and it's mostly medical product development.
So your role as site miner for the MII program, the word miner suggests that you're going out and identifying potential technologies for faculty to apply for. Is that the case, or are faculty coming to you for the?
We had given workshops trying to recruit faculty. We also work closely with the Tech Transfer Office, the Office of Technology Development at UMBC, and we hear about inventions very early on. But quite often we're connected directly with the faculty before they've even made an invention disclosure.
So the miner is implying that you're going out there, identifying, looking for people, and
I have to say a lot of them now are repeat customers with new ideas.
Repeat customers with new ideas. That's faculty. They're entrepreneurial, you see. They're thinking about it. Do you think that faculty that do it a second time or a third time, forming companies, are a little bit wiser? Or are they repeating bad mistakes from previous?
Yes, we're starting to see that actually.
Repeating bad mistakes?
Yeah.
Okay, well, how do you advise faculty not to repeat bad mistakes? And what are the mistakes, I guess, as well?
They're a little smarter the second time, I would say. But I think mostly we handle them all the same way, except that our chances of getting funded are a lot better.
Because they have experience. What type of mistakes do they make second time around? Are they the same as the first mistakes, and what are those mistakes typically?
The mistakes?
Yeah.
Who's the customer? What's the market?
Same
issue.
So even the second time around, they're not answering those particular questions. Wow. What about students then? So we've primarily talked about faculty entrepreneurialism. Right. For the students, a little harder. It's difficult for the institution to put money into patent protection for students that have technology, and of course they're not here that long. They're here, perhaps 4 years, and then they leave. Yeah. So, what services do we provide for students, or get to?
Actually, students depends on the student. If it's a graduate student working on a grant at at the university, then those inventions would be covered by the Office of Technology Development. If it's an undergraduate student that has an idea, it's actually their property, it's not the university property. So the OTE does not handle that. In general, I look at student projects as kind of an experience rather than as a real company development, because most of the projects aren't based on market issues. But the Alex Brown Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation has been around now for about 20 years as well, and it has some really good programs for let's say getting students started and thinking about the way to do it, and good connections also across the campus. So and we have a program called the Idea Lab. If a student starts a company, they can become an affiliate at our incubator at no cost.
Okay.
And that they get all the resources without any cost at all, except for insurance.
Do we have undergraduates that have actually formed companies out of these programs, and those companies are around today?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah. I would say in the pitch competition there were 2 or 3 companies this year.
Excellent. So I go through my cheat sheet here. Let's talk a little bit about do's and don'ts for faculties. What are some of the big mistakes that faculty do besides market assessment, which we've heard you. We've heard you on market assessment. We got it. What are the do's and don'ts you think for faculty? You know, what should faculty be thinking about? What should they be doing, etc. From an early stage on. We're talking about faculty that have this idea.
Right. Well, first of all, there's a conflict of interest issue that they have to deal with. If you start a company, and then you have an issue of do I do something in the company or do I do it in my own lab? So that becomes a conflict with the university. You have to deal with that, and there's a separate office to deal with that. And the second is IP protection. You should give the Office of Technology Development as complete a description of whatever you think your idea is, your invention is, and who was involved in that invention as well. Those are the 2 starting points. And then we can help raise money for the project. And often the faculty members are very good at raising money too. It's not the problem sometimes. And the third thing is we can start to make connections in the business world with them, or help them find somebody that can be at least a business advisor as they go along. I think that's a start.
Okay. What advice do you have for faculty who has an idea that wants to launch a company? What's your advice for them? Besides get a market survey done, market assessment.
Yeah, my advice is don't try to do things that you're not trained to do. It's a long experience, and sometimes you will never really learn it properly. In my case, I have a PhD in chemical engineering. When I go to raise money, they still think I'm a researcher. I was a researcher for about 15 years, and they still see me, the investors see me as a scientist, not as a business person, even though I've been in business for 30 years. So try to get support that can help you understand the market and the business that you're trying to get into. I would say talk to people. People want to help, and they'll do it for nothing quite often if you just ask for help. And we'll do that if you get the campus. But I think it goes back to what problem are you solving and who's the customer for that in the end.
Do you think we should have training courses for faculty that would tell them the sequence of things that need to happen for getting their idea to market, and give a course that gives a lot of advice, etc.? Do you think?
So we actually have a couple of training programs at the Tech. One, for example, is how to develop a pitch and then practice the pitch. We've had faculty participation in that, and it's actually been good for them, I think. As I mentioned before, the Alex Brown Center is actually resurrecting a training program for junior faculty who want to start businesses or actually run their own business, which is a lab experience. But yes, there could be more training, I think, and mostly to create awareness about what the issues are rather than how to do it. Because if you're to the point of how to do it, then you actually can get support for that.
Okay. You mentioned the pitch. This is something that as faculty, this is something that we're particularly good at. And the reason I think faculty are good at doing pitches is because we talk for a living. We teach, we talk for a living, we stand up in front of big audiences. I'd like to get your take on how you see a pitch being put together and what should be in that pitch and how faculty should think about doing a pitch.
Most faculty is very good at pitching technology development. But let's say if you were doing a pitch with 10 slides in it, when we start out, we have a faculty member coming and pitch their project, there'll be 8 slides on the technology and 2 slides on the business. And when they're done, there'll be 1 slide on the technology and 9 slides on the business. Because that's what, when you're raising money, that's what investors are interested in. It's not about the technology. They assume the technology is.
Okay. Do you think there are different pitches for different circumstances, different audiences?
Absolutely.
I'm going to talk about those potentially different audiences and different pitches for that.
Right. So if you're giving a government pitch, it's completely different. You're looking for a grant or an investment. If you're talking to angels, you're looking for people who are interested in your project first, and then about investing. If you're talking to a venture capitalist, how do I make money out of it? So completely different.
Do you want to talk, now we've mentioned angels, as you know, for many years I've been in the Baltimore Angel Group myself, and the way angels actually think is actually a section in the book, because it's a very unique perspective of how an angel investor builds up his portfolio. And certainly over the years, the way I built my portfolio was based on some core values and ideas that I've learned from some very sophisticated investors in the Baltimore Angels, people that have had really large exits from companies and made a lot of money over the years. How do you think angels think? And then I'm going to ask you how you think VCs, organizations think. How do you think an angel works?
So angels, I always look at angels as, let's say, wealthy individuals who are looking for projects that they're interested in. And there has to be that interest before they'll invest, and they want to get actively involved in some way. VCs, it's completely different. It's about how you take this technology and then convert it into a business. We'll put our own people in place, and it's a very cold, actually, approach to business formation. Completely different.
What about from a financial perspective in terms of where you might get angel funding from versus a VC type of level of funding?
So angels, you're likely not to get more than $300,000 or $400,000 total investment, so it's an early stage investment, usually after a grant kind of support. VCs, you'll probably start around $5 million or something like that. It's not worth their while to look at a project that's much less than that, and they can go up to $50 or $60 million depending on where you are.
Do you introduce faculty that have a company to angel groups and VCs if the company is large enough? Mm-hmm. What type of angel groups do you look at? Do you talk to?
Mostly local, and mostly basically people that we met networking and we know fairly well, and look for connections through their own groups. Baltimore Angels, Blue Ventures, and another Old Line Venture Investments. We're mostly talking with friends, and we're looking for connections there.
I smiled when you said that angels are that are wealthy individuals that are looking for pet projects to be able to invest in. Nearly all the angels I know are just interested in one thing, and that's in making more money. But what I do know about the angels is they typically invest in core competencies. So I do agree there. For example, when I make an investment in something, 99.9% it's going to be along about the science, where I can assess the science and have a look at the science.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I should say it a different way. Angels are more likely to invest in a project they understand than a project they don't understand.
Yeah.
And so it's usually something in their past that will trigger that kind of an interest.
Talking about angels and financing, when do you think that a faculty member that's launching a company through the university spin out, when do you think they should be talking to angels for financing?
So generally, they're going to start with grants, federal grants and state grants, or investments from the government. It's different from project to project, of course, depending on how much money you need. But I don't think it's ever too early to start talking to angel investors, frankly, when you've got a product that you think is going to work. So very early on. And they're usually the first outside money into a project, non-governmental.
Do a lot of the companies, and I'm going to just come back to that, I have a different take on that, I want to ask you about that, but do you think that a lot of companies that are formed on campus, they have friends and family rounds initially before they move on to larger, say, Series A type thing? Is that common for a lot of
Yes,
faculty?
it's a normal thing, actually. Call it friends and family, but fools sometimes. But normally there'll be some kind of grant support, and they have their own job, they don't quit their job, and they kind of do it on the side. And so they're investing their own time, but not so much their own money. It depends a lot on what kind of project it is too. If it's a cure for cancer, for family, it's not going to do much good for them.
Right. Okay. Do a lot of the angels that have worked with companies on campus, are they typically heavily involved with the companies? Or are they just investing and then moving on, or are they wanting to be involved in some capacity?
Generally, there's some involvement, and I would generally look at that as a good thing because they have a different perspective than and it can be, we've had angels who become involved with the company. Personally, I think that's generally a good thing. Does it happen all the time? No, not all the time.
Do you believe there should be some coaching from people like yourself and other entrepreneurs on campus, enabling faculty to talk to these people? Because I think talking to money directly without any coaching skills, money skills, business skills can be really detrimental, I think, to trying to raise money in the future.
Right. Yes, I think there needs to be some understanding of what the angels or any investor are looking for. Generally, you're not going to. Let me say, if the scientist goes out and starts networking and meeting people, often it'll put the project in the wrong perspective. I think for the investor, and they won't get the full understanding of what's going on. So that's generally not the best way to meet investors. Advisors, yes. Investors, not so much.
So in other words, we're creating a different type of pitch, stroke elevator talk for talking to angels than we are other people.
I think that's true. It's early stage, so there's a lot more risk.
You mentioned friends, family, and fools. Let me drill down on that fools a little bit at the end there. I thought that was an interesting comment.
Well, the fools part comes in because the risk is so high at the very early stage. And you could say that nobody but a fool would make that investment, right?
In other words,
the failure rate's very high also early on.
In other words, grandma's just investing because it's...
I would never go ask my grandmother for money.
There you go.
It's a good way to lose a friend.
I know a lot of people that have got a lot of friends and family money, including grandmas, and when it's not worked out, it's created issues within the family.
It's really an issue. I would never do that. I would never recommend it.
Have I missed anything this morning that you think we should be talking about, that you'd like to communicate to faculty, you think would be helpful to faculty?
No, I would say at BW Tech we have 8 entrepreneurs in residence now, actually, in all over the place. If there's some kind of support or something you'd like to talk about your project, we're happy to talk about that. Maybe it leads to MII, maybe to some other investment. There's a lot of support on the campus. For UMBC is a relatively small campus, 13 or 14,000 students,
Yeah.
but the entrepreneurship continuum is actually pretty well developed across the campus. And there's a lot of help if you just start looking for it. And I would try to understand what I'm trying to do before I went out and actually started the company.
I think one of the reasons that, and I hope you agree with me here, that we have this entrepreneurial spirit on UMBC that is growing year on year is because as an institution, we have done well at being able to put the key components in place and create an ecosystem, a village.
Right.
Whereas perhaps 20 years ago, I can tell you that one of the first company I did, that did not exist.
It didn't exist at all. The Alex Brown Center has done a lot for that on the campus, but and BW Tech development as well. The research park for a university of this size with 130 companies, 150 interns working at those companies at any one time, maybe 150 or 200 alumni working in those companies. That's very unusual for a university this size.
Let's talk about that, the economic development side of things. UMBC's core competency is educating and graduating undergraduate, graduate students. And so a lot of people may think that economic development is not something that's our core competency, not something we should be doing, even though we are mandated by state to have a component that's in there. How big do you think the economic impact is of what we do entrepreneurial-wise, launching companies, etc., on the state of Maryland?
Right. I don't know the number right now.
Guesstimate.
If you ask Aaron.
Guesstimate.
Probably there are 1,800, 1,700 jobs at BW Tech, for example, and they're all paying state taxes. So it's pretty substantial. It's in the tens of millions of dollars, and we've actually got data to support that. So, and I have to say, prior to the formation of the research park, it was very controversial in Catonsville. They didn't want to have more traffic around, but now they're encouraging that development because it's very good for the community. I see economic development as a different component of the university activities. It's not taking away from the academics, it's actually adding to the academics in terms of internships and that sort of thing. I don't think they're competing, I think they're just two separate parts of the same activity.
Of the 130 companies you mentioned at BW Tech, how many of those are university spin-out companies?
From UMBC, maybe 10 or 12, so not a lot. From other universities, probably 40, 30 or 40.
So a significant fraction of state,
Yes. And we have so much space, frankly, that if we depended on UMBC, we wouldn't be able to fill it up. So we're from all over the state.
As we come to a conclusion here, I wanted to ask if you had any stories, without mentioning anybody in particular, that are lessons that can be learned of companies that you've seen over the years you wanted to share.
Well, I think the importance of having a business CEO is what I talked about, and that I'll say a very large number of our companies that have failed have been run by the technology-based PIs, and it's a bad idea. We need to find competent people to get into those companies. That's my primary concern about the company formation.
And you've mentioned that a few times today.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. The problem there, of course, is getting the CEO, having the money to hire the CEO early, and that's one of the challenges for young startup companies.
Well, I think if and when UMBC becomes really interested in fostering company formation, we'll create a fund to support those people early on. Some money can come from MII, but mostly the university can make an investment in the companies by hiring the right person.
Do you see that possible, using state dollars to be able to then hire a CEO?
We have internal funding right now, right, for projects, and the primary reason that we fund those internal seed projects is that there's a commercialization potential. So I don't see why we couldn't hire someone to help with that.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Anything you'd like to add at the end here as we close it down?
No, I think it's a really interesting approach that you're taking. Academia is the source of the technology that drives the economy, frankly. And from my own perspective, it's really interesting to see how those companies form. But we need a bigger, broader base of experienced business people to get involved with the companies. That we should really be working on that.
Okay, thank you. I think during the interview this morning, I think we've got your four key points.
Yes,
they are well received.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, David Fink, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.